There are numerous industries that you can be making money in with your artwork. And a lot of times people talk about artwork like it can only be done on panels or canvas, but I want to talk to you about doing artwork on things like what we're looking at right here and the money you can be making doing it. Now, it's good also to be for people that may just do custom paint work, automotive, helmets, things like that, to also, vice versa, to be thinking about doing some artwork on panels and selling just your art, because people are going to want that as well. So this is some projects that I've done over the last couple years and what I've got paid to do these projects. And you can see it's not bad money for the work that you're doing. You're really getting it, learning the process and having some fun with it. So if you can learn a little bit about that, some of the prep process and the supplies you need, you can really get yourself into a whole nother world and be making good money and having fun doing it. We're continuing on finishing the grill here for this. It's an 18 through 20 Ford F-150, and we're going to be doing the skull here up in the top right. And as you can see, the little stencil there. And we have these stencils available on our website. I'll be leaving a link below. And they're Mylar stencils. And so we have several different types, several different skulls, a lot of cool like little automotive parts, and we're slowly adding more and more to all the art supplies that we have for sale on there. And we've got mixed paint for airbrushes. We have some urethane paint that we're working with that comes ready to spray in smaller little bottles with twist caps. And so we're gonna get going with this. This will be the last part of the skull that we do until we're going to finish up the rest of this grill, but we're going to get into doing this little skull here, and try and give all these skulls a different look here. So I'll also leave a link below with a way you can sign up for the emails, and we're going to be giving some of these stencils away every month, and also doing discounts. There's some other services and stuff on there that you'll find. You can work with me one-on-one with learning how to do any of this stuff. You can also leave any questions or comments, anything that you're curious about, or something that maybe you didn't see that I left out. Let me know in the comments, and I will reply to all the questions and all the comments. So you can kind of just follow along with and see what we're doing here. I also, in one of the previous videos on this same project, I did an example of cutting out on how to cut these stencils out of paper, so you can just print them up on your computer or any image that you want to paint, and get your stencil cut out, and be able to go in and really just get the placement of some of the details. That is what we're doing with the stencil. It's not necessarily a complete way of painting with just using the stencil to paint through. So it's learning how to read the photo and see where certain elements are, shadows, fine line work, and be able to apply that in a way with using the stencil, but also using some freehand techniques. So you can see here, even just spraying through some of those little areas, that little detail in the nose there, the crack in the eye sockets there, it really places that detail and gets the project moving along, puts you ahead quicker, and you start to see the results of of the work that you're putting in by taking those little steps, by using the X-Acto knife to cut out some of that little fine line detail. And you can kind of you can use either the X-Acto, or you can kind of open up certain parts of the stencil and spray through it, and it's going to put a lot of that really cool detail, which some of it you can leave and just go with the way it looks being sprayed through the stencil. You can also kind of trace over it with the airbrush and really give it more depth, make things darker, make adjustments as you need. So you'll see in just the first part of this video, we're getting everything placement, everything placed the way it needs to be, and the nose, the eyes, everything to where it looks like the skull is rotated at that certain angle. And there's a lot of common art theories as to how you can do this just out of your head, and understanding angles and the way to find the center of a face or a skull with certain line drawings and stuff. So, and that's definitely a good way to challenge yourself and to develop some good skill too. I just think with using a stencil, it can definitely be a little more photorealistic, a little more anatomically correct with any image that you're trying to paint, right? It's going to really put the right perspective in place, as to where if you're just trying to do it out of your head and create this picture and image, it can be a little, you can wind up, running into a little more trial and error, and maybe taking a little bit longer on the process of seeing some good results. And that's the fun part, right? You want to get into this, and the excitement is when you start seeing your progress made. So any way we can speed that up and get some really satisfying results is going to really, I think, provide all the motivation that you need to continue to want to do it, have fun. And like I said, really think about how you can, maybe if you're an artist that just goes and that just paints with on a canvas or on panels or whatever your flat substrate is, and then you're just going and you're trying to just sell your artwork, working with people, and that and getting your artwork out there to people that want your artwork, maybe not just on a panel, maybe they want it on a mural in their house, or I've done a lot of stuff for the military, a lot of projects for people with sports equipment, signs, even nowadays, like the miniatures are pretty popular too. So you can take a lot of these techniques and apply it to anything, and really have a good experience with what you're doing, as far as being able to make money and get your life to the place that you want, to where you're having fun and getting paid good to do it. And so to do that, you really do got to be a little more open-minded. And same thing with guys and girls that do automotive painting or helmets, things like that. You want to be thinking also, like, how can I have some artwork available for people to purchase? People that like my artwork but think the only way I can get it is if I have some project that you can paint it on. So by artists that do a lot of custom paint, automotive stuff, in any kind of airbrush artwork, and you're doing it like commissions on certain items that people bring you, having some artwork on panels and cool ways to display it, and having that available for people to buy, is, again, it's going to open up so many doors for you, and really show a lot more opportunities and ways you can grow your business and the profit that you're making from everything. So you can see I kind of sprayed through the teeth there and got the outline of the teeth in, and I'm just looking at my photo reference and just also finishing along. You can see some of those cracks were placed from using the stencil, and that can be really good. If at first it can be a little bit harder to maybe manipulate the airbrush to do these little fine line details. So just using the X-Acto to get them cut out of the stencil, any of the fine line work that you're trying to do, it can set you up to where you're, again, making faster progress and seeing results, and that's gonna really be a lot more motivating and exciting as we're going along and learning how to, or even if you're gone so far with it and you have some of this down, and it's gonna just help improve your technique, help improve the pace at what you're doing. Just finishing up, going around this little, kind of making it trail back towards the bottom of the, kind of going backwards in the skull there. So I'm just going to go through and outline these teeth here. I'm just kind of going up and over the little kind of little half circle kind of ridge that goes up and around the top of each tooth. And sometimes, yeah, you'll get a little bit of paint that dries on the end of the needle there, so you're basically just holding the air on and you just pull, you just kind of pick that off there. And sometimes you have to just hold the airbrush over to the side and, you know, pull the trigger all the way back, hold it wide open for a second or two, you know, dump out a couple loads of paint, and that'll also blast some of that stuff out and keep your airbrush running good. That's just kind of part of, you know, using the airbrush. Really any kind of painting apparatus, if you think about it, is going to start to get to a point where it has dried paint on it, whether it's a paintbrush, an airbrush, a spray gun, a paint roller, you know, anything. It needs to have a little bit of maintenance. You know, you're going to have somewhere where the paint's going to start to dry. So the stencils we have online, they have these little shapes cut into them, so you'll be able to go through it and do all these teeth and the top of the ridge of the eye, little eyebrow there, to make the eye socket looks like it kind of rolls back into the skull. And it has several of the areas along the outside of the stencil that are cut into for you, so you can go in and they're labeled, so you can go in and really do this detail the way you want. You know, again, I have all these images you can also get for free on our website, and then you can just print them up on your computer and go in and cut them out manually. So you don't, you know, you don't have to buy anything, but you can at least get the images. They're free, and then print them up to the size you want and go in and cut out, make your own stencil, and yeah, really have some fun, be able to just get going on it either way from any standpoint. So I'm just going to get in the back part of the jaw there, just darken that up a little bit, just create a little bit of separation between the front part of the jaw. It's really just creating some depth. And yeah, we're just doing those little shadows that are between each teeth. You know, yeah, each tooth, you're gonna see the little ridges that's above each tooth as it grows out, and the little shadows that are in between. So that's always a really cool detail that starts to really shape a skull. But it can also be applied to a ton of other different images. You'll be using that same technique to do a lot of different things, you know, whatever you're trying to render. You can see there getting a pretty good result with it already. You can, you know, you don't even have to go take it as far as, you know, it is in some of the videos here, but it's really just meant to show a lot of the techniques, what you can do. You can get a great result. And a lot of people like skulls. I mean, it's a pretty popular thing. It's probably the thing I've airbrushed the most over the 10 years. You know, I've been doing this, I guess, maybe about 11 years or so, I guess, at this point. But, you know, you always go through and do that little ridge in between the eyes there, underneath the center of the eyebrows. And taking the cap on and off is, you know, the cap's going to come off when we're doing real fine line detail or very fine shadows. And then we put the cap back on when we want a little bit wider spray pattern. And so when we're just doing a little more broad shadows, you can use any part of the stencil. You can see there I'm just turning it in whatever way you need to block the outer part of the eye, but then shade the inside of the eye socket where it's shadowed and a little darker. And just going down and getting that shadow there underneath the nose and helping that nose to kind of take shape a little bit more. And then on top of here, I'm just kind of blocking the bridge of the nose, the top, and then I was just shadowing the side of it. Create that kind of vertical look there. And you can just follow along and really just copy what I'm doing, and with just going really light. It's just very little trigger pull, and I'm just trying to you can see I've gone over like this area a few times, but it's just about a slow build, and that's how you can really keep it really controlled with the end result with what you're doing. So you never want to just go too dark and just totally blacken something out or get it too colored in. And I'm just going on the other side of the jaw and the nose there, getting that shadowed in, the little part that's inverted. As I'm going through, I'm just using any part of the stencil. I have other stencils and shields, so as you get going, you'll have more tools in the bag with different stencils and different little types of shields and stuff that you can use for all your projects. And just good to have stuff you can bust out and get things to take shape with how you need them to. There's a little bit of light reflecting on it, so it's kind of a little bright spot there, but you can see where I'm shading it with my hand. When we go in, you can see it, but it's really, a lot of it's the metallic too. As I'm starting to paint, it's starting to bring out more of that metallic that's under the clear coat that we're painting on. And I'm going to just get this eye in place and do the top of the eyebrow there, kind of the top part of the ridge of the eye. Again, that all of our stencils have these, so you can hold it up from the side and be able to get it exactly where you need it, and it has all those little features that enable you to do all this specific work on here. So here I'm going to try and create a little bit of a highlight on the side of this eye here. And so it's something that's a little bit different, not something you see a whole lot of, I guess, with using the airbrush, but it's a neat little trick that you can use. You can go in and especially when you're just doing shadowing and everything, and we can go in here with one of these little erasers, and it really just kind of helps blend some of the shadows as well. Like if your shadow has a little bit too hard of an edge on it, you can see there it kind of softens it and starts to kind of blend some of the work, and it can also create some really cool highlights. And then you can see here I just have a little bit of wax and grease remover that I'm going in, because those erasers, they will kind of leave behind a little bit of a wax, I guess it is. But yeah, just going in and wipe that off after you use the eraser. And just you can use it for a lot of different effects. So, but yeah, just that's one thing I always remember to do is just go in with that wax and grease remover and it get that residue from the eraser off, and it just wipes right off there and then dries real quick. So I'm just doing some little kind of pores here, just kind of making it look like it's pitted. When you look at a skull, you'll see a lot of texture and a lot of little pitting and things with it. And we'll get in here and finish this little growth point in between the eyebrows here. Kind of carry it up along the skull there. Make it kind of round. I try and, when I'm doing those on there, I try and make them round rather than just, try and make it follow the contour of the skull. So again, you can just kind of really just copy sort of step by step what I'm doing. And like I said, you can get this picture on my website on customairbrushart.com and print it out, make a nice stencil, and you can kind of just follow along with what I'm doing. And you can see a couple of the other videos too. We did some skulls that were similar that are on the other side, a different angle. And it's all a lot of good stuff, especially for learning skull. A lot of stuff that'll get you ahead and get you to where you're doing some good work, getting good results, having some fun with it. And then I'm also gonna really touch on a lot of, really good business practices that you can do to grow your business, attract clients, and make some really good money with doing this work. Just kind of going over, with your teeth. If your teeth, they're not like a perfectly, I guess, flat shape, so they kind of have little shadows and stuff, that little ways, it's kind of a uneven surface almost on some of your teeth. And so I'm just going to go through and kind of freehand this little crack in the skull here. So you can see there, got a pretty good result here. We take a look at a different angle. And you can see, it didn't do too bad there with it. And you can really just go through and just copy what I was doing, and you can get the stencil. You can make your own stencil and be able to go have some fun with it. This is the image that's on the site that you'll get. You'll get a free download, and you can go through and cut it out, and really have some fun with it. You can see, I take some of these parts, automotive exterior parts. You can think of other things that are, items that get rebought or replaced frequently, and that are maybe exposed to risk of damage and things like that, and something that you enjoy, that a product that you can resell and really grow your business and sales and everything. So check out the next video, and we'll see you soon.